Did you know that 1 in 15 adults have been the victim of a mass shooting? Or that every 30 minutes someone is treated for a firearms injury? Or at least that's what the new facts from a syndicate of anti-gun organizations say. But that can't possibly be right? 1 in 15? Well, obviously they aren't. Like they've done with about every statistic they ever pull out of the dumpster, it's greatly misrepresented. That's why today we're going to equip you against the left's endlessly churning propaganda machine and go over this new study as well as a laundry list of other commonly spoken false facts to show you that this is not a new tactic. It's the same play from the same playbook every single time. Before we get to that, though, I want to remind you that right now we have a petition to Pam Bondi to act swiftly and in line with President Trump's executive order from a couple months back. So if you want to ensure that the DOJ dismantles Biden's marathon of tyranny, then click the link in the description below. Let's start off with the newest and most easily disprovable claim. According to the anti-gun organization Everytown for Gun Safety, 1 in 15 Americans have been a victim of a mass shooting. A rational person would think, I know a lot more than 15 people, and I can't think of a single one that's been the victim of a mass shooting. So where in the world is that number coming from? The first thing we need to ask ourselves is, how are they defining victims here? Manipulating long-held definitions is a common tactic of the anti-gun crowd, and is typically the best place to start to apply scrutiny. If asked to define a mass shooting victim, you and I might say that a mass shooting victim is exactly what it sounds like. Someone who is tragically shot or injured as a crazed gunman walks into a historically gun-free zone and starts shooting. But this is far too narrow a definition for the anti-gun crowd. We dug deeper and found the study this statistic was pulled from. The study says, and I quote, "The survey clarified physically present as in the immediate vicinity of where a shooting occurred at the time it occurred, such that bullets were fired in your direction, you could see the shooter, or you could hear the gunfire." Right off the bat, there is already a big red flag here. If you even hear gunfire, you're the victim of a mass shooting? Sure, being in the same location as something that terrible would be jarring, but this is the new twist on what's previously been a standard for documenting the rise and fall in violent crime. This reclassification would expand the definition of a victim up to dozens, hundreds, and potentially even thousands of people depending on the location. If my neighbors hear me shooting in my backyard, are they considered a victim? Is the hundreds of thousands of false reports of gunfire that were actually fireworks make people victims? This expands it so far, you really don't know where you could actually stop it. And that's how you get to the point of 1 in 15 people, millions of people, apparently being victims of mass shootings. I want to quickly point out another egregious piece of data from Everytown. A month ago, they created an AI-powered program titled EverySHOT that tracked shootings and plotted them out on a map. I hardly had to dig at all to notice an example of a veteran suicide being classified as having 8 victims. Not only are they including suicides, but they're actively redefining victims once again. The entire list is riddled with examples like this one. You'll see that most of these statistics are misused by a well-hidden change in definition. Another anti-gun organization, Giffords, used these crafted definitions to claim that every 30 minutes, someone is treated for a gun violence injury. These injuries include negligent discharges, and negligent discharges happen far more often than you'd think. Negligent discharges are not gun violence. Tragic, sure. Stupidity, sometimes. But gun violence, I don't think so. Not only are they fluffing up those numbers, but they also use NDs to make the claim that there were 349 school shootings in 2023. Friend of NAGR, Brandon Herrera, did a great job dismantling this argument when he testified alongside us against the Colorado assault weapons ban.
The United States has had 57 times as many school shootings as every other G7 country combined. My question is for anybody out there, why? Why is that?
Because of the way you track your statistics. That statistic is a sham. I've seen it. A negligent discharge in a parking lot that injures nobody is counted as a school shooting in that statistic. It's horrific. There's lies, damnable lies in statistics, as the story goes.
The example he's referring to comes from the Gun Violence Archive, where they classify a school shooting as any discharge of a firearm within 1,000 feet of a school. One of the most famous examples of this was a gun discharging in the parking lot of a school during summer accidentally. No one was injured, yet this was still listed as a school shooting and used in all of their examples to fluff up the number. The anti-gun crowd loves when they can exploit tragedies like school shootings to push their agenda. The question asked of Brandon Herrera is one of their main pieces of propaganda. Here's a clip of the gun control lobby's golden boy, DNC Vice Chair David Hogg, making the exact same claim.
This is not just something that happens. Look at other countries around the world. Even the ones like Switzerland that have many firearms, they have a very strong system of regulation around those firearms. That is the reason they don't have school shootings on a daily basis.
This argument is always made in bad faith. David Hogg and those Colorado legislators know that Switzerland has an extremely high rate of gun ownership, and in some cases, better laws than some blue cities, and yet they do not face the same problems that we do. It is not the firearms that is the cause of this. These studies are made with the sole intent of discrediting gun owners and heightening the public's fear of guns. For example, they've been saying for years that gun violence is now the #1 cause of death for children. That is, if you define children as anyone under the age of 20 and anyone over the age of 1. Take a moment to think about that. For starters, why would you exclude children under 1? Well, it's simple. The overwhelming cause of death for infants is disease. It throws off their entire self-serving statistic. Don't like the answers you're getting? Just keep carving up the data sets and torturing the statistics until the numbers reflect your argument. At what point did we start accepting that legal adults are in the same category as children? People over 18 are obviously not children, but it allows the gun control lobby to include a section of the population that contributes to gun violence the most: young men who are engaged or caught up in gang violence. Hell, you can even open the numbers yourself and sort out the 18 and 19-year-olds. This drops the firearms deaths into less than half of the original number. Add in children under 1, and it becomes very clear that gun violence is not the leading cause of death for children. The anti-gun groups know that the average person won't dig that far into these studies. Their propaganda is almost entirely crafted for the headlines. They just need the data to technically be right under their unmentioned conditions so that their politicians and bureaucrats like the ATF aren't technically lying. When confronted with these numbers, all they can do is deflect. Let me show you this clip of Thomas Massie asking the previous ATF director, Stephen Diggelbach, about these pieces of data.
The leading cause of death for American children is gun violence. Not cars, not cancer, guns.
Can you define a child and youth?
There's child and youth. There's a statistical study that is the source of that, and we can get that to you. I don't know the specific site sitting here. We'll be glad to get that to you.
Yeah, the statistical study, according to news reports, excludes infants under the age of 1 and includes 18 and 19-year-olds. Is that true?
I don't know. I mean, honestly.
You don't know your own statistic?
No, I don't know. Honestly,
why
isn't
would that
any
be your
killing of
testimony to
children
Congress?
unacceptable?
Any killing of any person is unacceptable, except in self-defense.
Congressman, firearms violence is a huge.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to let you make your public service statement. I want you to defend your sworn testimony. Are you claiming that 18 and 19-year-olds are children in your statistic?
And again, you have my statement.
Yeah, I have it. I'm asking you to explain it. You're including in your statistic, whether you know it or not, 18 and 19-year-olds, but you would never claim that those are minors in the context of gun prosecutions. And the only way you can get the number of deaths attributable to firearms above other causes is by excluding under the age of 1 and including 18 and 19-year-olds, particularly gang members, and including self-defense.
So far, these facts have been derived from cleverly disguised studies and twisted details. But sometimes they'll just resort to outright lying. Since constitutional carry has been passed in a multitude of states over the past few years, crime has plummeted. With a wave of responsible gun owners covering cities, the reward for crime no longer outweighs the risk. In Ohio, firearms death went down 20% after constitutional carry was passed. For Texas, the year it was passed, it dropped by 6%. If you look now, it's all the way down to 49%. So why is Democrat Jasmine Crockett outright lying when she says this?
The numbers are clear. I think almost every major law enforcement agency come forward and say that they were against permitless carry because they said that their jobs would be made more difficult. Deaths from firearms keep climbing in Texas decades after lawmakers began weakening gun regulations. That is from the Texas Tribune.
The article she's quoting from provides no data for the crime rate after permitless carry was passed. Funny enough, the chart they used shows that the major pro-gun bills in Texas had no effect on the rate of firearms deaths. Bottom line is, all of these studies are exactly the same. Data twisted and turned into lies, sold off as truths. I wish these tricks didn't work on the American public. but sadly they do. So as gun owners, it's our job to equip each other with the tools to combat this misinformation. Hopefully now you find yourself well-versed enough to easily dismantle these talking points in the future. Once again, I want to remind you that we have a petition to Pam Bondi in the description below. So click the link and help make the voice of gun owners even louder. Until next time, thank you for watching.